Don't worry if you don't understand English very well. You can simply press the settings button and easily set a subtitle language.
For automatic subtitles, tap the CC icon or the settings button, select subtitles, and then the language you prefer. Works the same on all devices.
That was all super simple and quick. Enjoy watching.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into the story of a man whose ideas have, believe it or not, shaped billions of lives for more than 2,500 years. We're talking about Confucius.
So, to really get a handle on his complicated legacy, let's start with a bit of a modern mystery. Picture this. It's 2011, and right in the heart of Beijing, a massive 30-foot bronze statue of Confucius just appears. And not just anywhere, but in Tiananmen Square, probably one of the most politically sensitive spots on the entire planet.
And then, get this, just a few months later, poof, it vanished, just as mysteriously as it showed up. No big announcement, no official reason, it was just gone. You know, this whole peekaboo game with the giant statue tells you everything you need to know about the deep, deep tension in modern China over who this guy Confucius really was and what he still means today.
So let's unpack this. Who exactly was this man, known in China as Kongzi or Master Kong? How could one person inspire so much reverence and at the same time, so much ridicule and even outright revolution?
I mean, look at these two extremes. On one hand, for literally thousands of years, he's been worshipped as this ultimate sage. One of his followers even said he reached a summit greater than any human before him. But on the other hand, he's been totally despised as a symbol of a backward feudal past. I mean, they called him lazy, arrogant. He was a major target during the Cultural Revolution's purge of the Four Olds.
All right, to really understand his philosophy, we have to travel back in time. We've got to see the world he was born into, around 551 BC. And let me tell you, it was a brutal, absolutely chaotic time.
Yeah, this was not the unified China we think of today. We're talking about an era of total political chaos. You had about 14 different states all locked in this desperate, bloody free-for-all for domination. Rulers were getting assassinated left and right, entire kingdoms were just wiped off the map, and war was just a constant state of being.
And this chaos is totally central to how he thought. Confucius looked at all the violence and mayhem around him, and then he looked back to what he saw as a golden age, a time when, in his mind, rulers governed with virtue, with kindness. And that led him to ask a really simple but incredibly profound question. How do we get back to that? How can we restore harmony? So, what was his solution? Well, his answer wasn't some new religion. And it wasn't a political revolution either. It was a moral code. You could almost think of it as a kind of social technology, designed to bring order back to society, starting from the ground up. He was convinced the key was something called Li. Now, Li isn't just about stuffy, boring rituals. It's so much more than that. Think of it as all the customs and the social etiquette that act like the glue holding society together. We're talking everything from big, sacred ceremonies for your ancestors, all the way down to just how you say hello to a friend. These little things, he argued, are what bind us all together. But here's the thing. All those rituals are totally empty without what he called Ren. And this is really cool. The Chinese character for Ren is literally made up of the symbols for person and the number 2. It's all about the ideal relationship between people. It's about benevolence, humanity, that sense of empathy that he believed is what truly makes us human, what separates us from the animals. So you put it all together. You practice Lai, you cultivate Ren, and the ultimate goal, it's to become a Junzi. That means an exemplary person, a true gentleman, someone who leads and influences others through their moral character, not by using brute force. And this right here, this was absolutely radical for his time. See, before Confucius came along, a gentleman was just a guy born into a noble family. End of story. But he completely flipped that on its head. He said, no, a gentleman is anyone, rich or poor, who works on building a noble character. This is the crucial takeaway. Nobility was no longer about your bloodline. It was about your virtue. Okay, so armed with these incredible, powerful ideas, he hits the road. He sets out to advise rulers on how to govern properly. But, and this is a big but, his own lifetime was basically marked by what he saw as one massive political failure. He quickly discovered that, well, most rulers were way more into power than they were into virtue. There's this great story about the ruler in his home state, Lu. The guy gets a gift of 80 beautiful dancers and basically disappears from his duties for days.
Confucius was so disgusted he just resigned on the spot. It's what led to his famous and kind of cynical remark, "I have yet to meet a man who loves virtue as much as he loves sex."
And that resignation kicked off a 14-year journey into the wilderness, so to speak. For 14 years, he and his small group of loyal disciples just wandered from state to state looking for just one leader, a single ruler who would actually listen to his ideas and be willing to put them into practice.
And this journey was no walk in the park. It was incredibly dangerous. I mean, they were constantly caught in the crossfire between these warring states. They were almost assassinated. They got kidnapped. They were often on the brink of starvation. This wasn't some quiet philosophical retreat in the mountains. This was a desperate struggle for survival.
But it was actually through all this hardship that he really honed his most important ideas. At one point, one of his disciples, a guy from a wealthy family, was complaining about how much they were suffering. And Confucius basically told him that a true gentleman, a junzi, endures hardship. It's the petty man who gets overwhelmed by it. The lesson? True nobility isn't about comfort. It's forged in character.
So, Confucius dies around 479 BC, and by all accounts, he was a frustrated man. He died believing he'd completely failed. What he had no way of knowing was that his greatest success, his true legacy, was only just beginning, long after he was gone.
So how on earth did his ideas go from the notebooks of a failed advisor to the very foundation of an empire? Well, it happened in a few key stages. First, his loyal disciples gathered up all his teachings and compiled them into a book we now call the Analects. Then, centuries later, the powerful Han Dynasty comes along and makes his philosophy the official state ideology. And that decision led directly to the creation of the imperial examination system.
And this, right here, was his radical idea, that nobility comes from character, put into practice on an absolutely epic scale. Think about it. For nearly 2,000 years, China chose its government officials not based on their family name, but on how well they could master the Confucian classics in a series of incredibly difficult exams. It created a meritocracy, a system where your position was based on what you knew, and that system shaped the entire Chinese empire for centuries.
Now, since those imperial days, his influence has been on a real roller coaster. It's ebbed and flowed dramatically. He was viciously attacked during Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, seen as a symbol of everything old and corrupt. But in just the last few decades, he's been making a massive comeback.
Today, China is embracing its most famous sage all over again, and his ideas are popping up everywhere. You've got best-selling books like Confucius from the Heart. There are new boarding schools dedicated to teaching his classics. Even businesses are trying to integrate concepts like Ren or benevolence into their management style. And on a global scale, the government has sponsored hundreds of Confucius institutes all around the world to promote Chinese language and culture.
Which brings us full circle, right back to that disappearing statue in Tiananmen Square. So what actually happened to it? Well, it was quietly moved, tucked away inside a nearby museum off the main political stage. And that move really says it all, doesn't it? His place in modern China is still being figured out. He's way too important to just get rid of, but maybe a little too controversial to stand right in the heart of the capital.
You know, the story of Confucius is this incredible lesson in how a lifetime of what looks like failure can end up forging a legacy that outlasts entire empires. And as China's influence continues to grow all over the world, it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Just how much is this 2,500-year-old philosophy quietly shaping our future right now?
If you like the story of Confucius and want to discover other personalities, press the like button, subscribe, and share. See you in the next episode.